The morning rush at the cafe had finally slowed down, and she stood behind the counter wiping a clean glass for the third time. It was a habit she had picked up to calm her nerves after long hours of moving from table to table. Most people who came into the cafe barely noticed her. She took orders with a soft voice, carried trays with steady hands, and always tried her best to give customers what they needed without drawing attention to herself. But if anyone paid close attention, they might have seen the way her eyes moved whenever she passed the old piano standing quietly in the corner. Dust had gathered around its legs, and its paint had chipped off in some places. Most people treated it like decoration. Sometimes kids pressed random keys on it, and sometimes curious customers played simple tunes just for fun. But to her, it was more than an old piano. It reminded her of something she had left behind a long time ago. She never told anyone at the cafe that she knew how to play. She kept that part of her life hidden, locked away like a secret she wasn't sure the world needed to hear anymore. She had responsibilities now. Bills to pay. Long shifts to complete. Dreams could wait, she told herself. People like her didn't always get time to chase them. Late that afternoon, a group of regular customers walked in. They were friendly but loud, the type who joked with the staff and always sat at the same corner table. Today they were in a playful mood. One of them noticed the piano and said, "Let's see who can play something decent." They laughed and crowded around it. Filling the quiet cafe with uneven notes and clumsy tunes, she kept clearing tables nearby, pretending not to hear them, but she couldn't stop her ears from picking up every wrong note they pressed. Each sound felt like a reminder of the skills she once had, and the years she had spent trying to ignore it. One of the customers tried a song that was clearly beyond his ability. He pressed the keys hard, hoping force would somehow turn into talent. When the sound came out messy and off-key, the whole group burst into laughter. "You're terrible," someone teased. "I can hear that," he replied, grinning. "But at least I tried." Then another customer looked at her. She didn't know why, but the moment his eyes landed on her, she felt her stomach tighten. He raised his voice slightly, asking, "Hey, why don't you give it a try?" Her heart skipped a beat. She shook her head quickly and said she was busy with work. But that only made the group more playful. "Oh, come on," someone else said. "Waitresses don't usually know music anyway. It'll be funny. Just try one note." Their laughter wasn't cruel, but it carried an assumption that someone like her couldn't possibly know more than what they saw. That annoyed her a little, but she kept her face calm. Another person added, "We just want a quick laugh. Sit for a second. It's just a piano." She felt heat rush to her face. She wanted to walk away and forget the whole moment, but something inside her stopped. Maybe it was years of silence. Maybe it was the way they spoke so casually, without knowing they were stepping on something painful. Or maybe it was simply time to stop hiding. She took a slow breath and said quietly, "I'll play in a minute. Let me finish serving this last table." The group raised their brows, surprised she even agreed. They whispered to each other and chuckled, expecting her to press one or two wrong keys and laugh along with them. When she finally returned, she approached the piano with careful steps. Her hands trembled slightly, not because she didn't know what she was doing, but because she hadn't touched a real piano in a long time. The cafe suddenly felt smaller. The lights felt brighter. Every step she took toward the piano felt like walking into part of her old life that she had. Buried deep inside. The customers leaned forward, ready to enjoy the show. Even people sitting at nearby tables turned their heads, curious about what was happening. After all, it was not every day that the quiet waitress suddenly agreed to play. She pulled the bench out and sat down. Her back was straight, but her hands rested gently on her lap. She didn't touch the keys yet. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a breath to steady her racing thoughts. Then, slowly, she lifted her hands and placed her fingers on the keyboard. The first key she pressed was soft, almost hesitant. But the moment the sound hit her ears, something shifted. A feeling she had hidden for years returned, warm, familiar, and strong. It felt like coming home. She pressed another key, then another, testing the piano's tone. It was old, slightly out of tune, but she knew how to work with it. She had played worse instruments before. What mattered was the feel, not the flaws. The customers' laughter faded as soon as they noticed how she touched the piano. There was something deliberate in her movements, something practiced. Her fingers curved naturally over the keys as if they belonged there. Without giving herself more time to hesitate, she began to play a melody she had learned years ago. It wasn't a complex classical piece, but a gentle tune that carried emotion in every note. The sound filled the cafe slowly, like warm light spreading across a room. People stopped talking. A couple near the window put down their drinks. A barista behind the counter froze mid-step. Even the group of customers who had teased her stared, their smiles fading as they realized they had been wrong about her. She kept playing, letting her hands guide her instead of thinking too much. She didn't realize how her posture changed, how her face softened, how confidence returned to her movements. It was as if her body remembered what her mind had tried to forget. Music had once been her dream, the thing she lived for. She used to sit for hours practicing, imagining stages, imagining a future full of light and sound. But life had taken her in a different direction, pushing her to work instead of chase dreams. Still, the dream had never left her completely. It had just waited inside her, quiet, patient, ready to rise whenever she touched a piano again. By the time she reached the middle of the melody, the cafe had fallen into full silence. Not the uncomfortable kind, but the kind that appears when people witness something beautiful without expecting it. Every note she played seemed to carry a story, not just a song, but a piece of her heart she had kept hidden. One of the customers whispered, "Is she actually good?" Another replied in a stunned voice, "She's not just good. She's amazing." She didn't hear them. Her focus stayed on the keys. With every movement, she felt her old self returning, the girl who once believed she could be something more, the one who loved music deeply. When the melody reached its soft ending, she lifted her hands slowly from the keys. She didn't rush. She let the final note fade naturally into the room. The silence that followed was not awkward or confused. It was full of awe. For a moment, she simply sat there, unsure whether she had done the right thing. Old memories mixed with present emotions, making her heart feel heavy but proud. Then someone started clapping. One person, then another, then the entire cafe joined in. The sound grew louder until it filled the whole place. It wasn't polite applause, it was genuine, surprised, and full of respect. She stood up shyly, brushing her hands on her apron, unsure what to say. She wasn't used to attention. She wasn't used to people seeing her talent instead of her uniform. A customer finally spoke up, still stunned. "Where did you learn to play like that?" She looked down for a moment, then said softly, "I practiced for many years. But life got busy. I don't talk about it much anymore." The group that had teased her now looked embarrassed. Their earlier laughter felt foolish in the face of what they had just witnessed. They didn't know her story yet. They didn't know why she stopped playing or how much music meant to her. They didn't know the sacrifices she had made. But one thing was clear: they had judged her without knowing her, and she had just proved every assumption wrong. And though she didn't say it out loud, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. A small spark of hope. A reminder that her talent still lived inside her, no matter how much she tried to hide it. After the applause faded and people slowly went back to their conversations, she stood beside the piano, unsure of what to do next. Her hands were still warm from playing, and her heartbeat refused to calm down. She had spent so many years trying to hide this part of herself that bringing it out again felt almost strange, like she had stepped into someone else's life for a moment. She picked up her tray and quietly returned to work, but the cafe didn't return to normal. Everyone who had heard her play looked at her differently now. When she came to clear the table, where the group of regular customers sat, they spoke more softly than before. One of them finally said, "We shouldn't have joked like that. We didn't know you could play so well." She gave a small smile. "It's okay," she said politely, though deep down she knew it wasn't just okay. Being underestimated hurt, even if no one meant to offend her. Another person added, "You should play more often." "That was honestly beautiful." She thanked them quietly and walked away, unsure how to feel. A part of her felt proud, and another part felt nervous. She didn't want people to suddenly expect things from her. She didn't want to be someone they stared at whenever she walked by. She had gotten used to blending in, and attention made her uncomfortable. But the day didn't end there. Word spread quickly inside the cafe. People kept whispering to each other, looking toward the piano corner and then at her as she served tables. A couple even asked politely if she would play again sometime. The baristas behind the counter gave her friendly smiles as if they had just discovered something amazing about someone they worked with every day. When her shift finally ended, she walked home with tired legs and a heavy mind. The streets were calm and the evening air felt cool. She kept replaying the moment she touched the keys, the sound of the first note, the stunned silence of the cafe. It felt unreal. She hadn't planned any of it. She just acted on the moment, guided by something she thought she had lost long ago at home. She sat on the edge of her small bed and stared at her hands. She whispered to herself, "I still have it." After all these years, a small smile tugged at her lips. It was a feeling she hadn't felt since she was much younger, but then fear followed joy. If she allowed music back into her life, what would it change? She had responsibilities. Bills didn't wait for dreams. She reminded herself that she worked long shifts because she needed to survive, not because she had the luxury of chasing hobbies. But even as she tried to convince herself, she couldn't ignore the spark inside her. The next morning when she arrived at the cafe, something unexpected happened. Customers she had never spoken to before greeted her warmly. Someone said, "Are you the one who played yesterday?" Another person asked, "Will you play again later?" "We heard about it." Her cheeks warmed at the attention. She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled politely and continued her work. But she noticed the piano corner had been dusted and cleaned. Someone must have taken time to wipe it down, maybe in hopes that she would play again. Around noon, the cafe owner walked in. He was a busy man who usually didn't spend much time talking to the staff unless necessary. But today he approached her with an interested look. "I heard you played the piano yesterday," he said. "People haven't stopped talking about it." She swallowed nervously and nodded. "Just a small piece," she replied. "Small?" He repeated with a raised eyebrow. "From what I heard, it was impressive. Would you be willing to play on weekends?" "Not every minute, just a few songs here and there. It might bring more customers. And of course, I'll adjust your pay a bit for it." The offer struck her like a surprise she didn't know how to process. She stared at him, trying to understand whether he was being serious or just polite. But his tone was genuine. He truly wanted her to play. She didn't say yes instantly. She asked for time to think, and he agreed. All day, her mind was full of questions. Could she do it? Was she ready for people to watch her again? Could she handle the pressure? And what if she wasn't as good as they thought? What if yesterday was just luck, and she couldn't play like that again? Later that evening, when the cafe quieted down, the piano stood in its corner waiting. Almost like it was calling her? She glanced around and noticed there were only a few customers left, each busy with their own conversations. She slowly walked toward the piano. Her hands hovered above the keys before touching them. She pressed one note, then another. The sound echoed softly. The tune she played wasn't grand or complicated. It was gentle, a simple melody she used to practice when she was younger. Playing alone without anyone watching made the music feel personal, like whispering a secret only she could understand. The owner happened to walk by and paused to listen. He didn't interrupt. He stood quietly, letting her finish the short melody. When she looked up, he gave a small approving nod before walking away. He didn't push her or pressure her. He let her think. That small gesture meant more to her than she could express. After closing time, as she walked home again, she realized something important. All these years, she had avoided music because she thought life had taken it from her. But the truth was, she had closed the door herself. And now, somehow, life had opened it again when she least expected it. The next weekend arrived, and the cafe was busier than usual. Whether it was coincidence or curiosity, she couldn't tell. People chatted, laughed, and enjoyed their meals. She worked as usual, moving from table to table. But she kept glancing at the piano, Feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness, finally, during a calm moment in the afternoon, she walked to the piano. The cafe didn't fall silent this time, but a few people noticed and nudged their friends. Slowly, the noise softened. She sat down, took a breath, and began to play. The melody she chose was soft but full of emotion. It floated across the cafe like a story being told without words. People leaned back in their seats, letting the music fill the corners of the room. A child sitting near the window watched her with wide eyes. An elderly man tapped his finger gently on the table. The baristas paused their work to listen. This time, she wasn't playing out of frustration or to prove anything. She was playing because she wanted to. And that difference changed everything. As she continued, the cafe felt warmer, calmer, more alive. She saw the way people reacted, not with shock like the first time, but with appreciation. They listened with their hearts, not just their ears. She felt connected to them in a way she never had before. When she finished, the applause was softer but deeper. It wasn't the applause of surprise, it was the applause of gratitude. People smiled at her genuinely, not out of politeness. The owner approached her later and said, "This place hasn't felt this alive in a long time. You brought something special back." His words made her chest feel warm. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't just working. She was giving something meaningful. Over the next few weekends, more people started coming. Some customers asked about her music. A few recorded short videos and posted them online. Slowly, views increased. Comments appeared. People from different places wrote things like, "Who is this waitress playing so beautifully? And her music is calming?" She saw the videos one evening after someone from the cafe showed them to her. She didn't know how to react. She wasn't seeking fame. She didn't want the spotlight. But she couldn't deny the happiness she felt knowing her music touched people. She continued working her usual shifts. But now she had something more, a small piece of her dream returning to life. The piano wasn't just decoration anymore. It became part of her daily routine, part of her healing, part of her voice. Slowly, she realized something important. You don't have to shout for the world to notice you. Sometimes you just need to let your true self appear, even if it scares you. Even if life has pushed you down, your talent doesn't disappear. It waits quietly until you are ready to open the door again, and that's what she had done. She had opened the door she thought was locked forever. People who once overlooked her now admired her. Those who doubted her stopped doubting. Those who teased her apologized sincerely. And she, who once believed her dreams were too far away, found them slowly coming back into reach. Her journey wasn't about fame or applause. It was about rediscovering herself. The girl who once played with passion had grown up, struggled, worked hard, but the music inside her had survived. And when she touched the piano again, she didn't just prove others wrong, she proved herself right.